2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from Riprock, this is the Open Bar Review. It's the Graduate of the Galaxy, Paul Wedding. With me, as always, is Graduate of the Galaxy, Leopold Knopp. And this week we'll be reviewing Graduates of the Galaxy Volume 2. Actually, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Tell us all about it, Leopold.
The mercenary group from the first Guardians of the Galaxy, they're super famous now. They're running around the galaxy telling people, hey, we're the Guardians of the Galaxy, pay us a ton of money to shoot people. They get into a tight spot after a job because Rocket is stealing things for no reason, and they get saved by Ego, the living planet, played by the legend Kurt Russell. And he's like, hey, Star-Lord, I'm your dad. And Peter's like, you're a rock hurtling through space. How is this possible? They take him to his planet, who he is, because he's a person and a god and a planet. And it makes sense in the movie. He takes them to him, and they kind of hang out, and that's the movie.
Oh, I liked it. I might have liked it more than Volume 1.
I definitely did not like it more than Volume 1, but I like it more and more the more I think about it. Most of the conversation around this movie has centered around comparing it to the first one. That's kind of normal in sequels, but not to this degree. But let's get into this. Why do you think it was better than the first one?
I thought it was funnier. It seemed more epic, like the plot was more driven. I have some bias because I love like Marvel cosmic lore, and I feel like this movie delved into that a lot more, and we got some cooler aspects of the Marvel cosmic universe, and I thought they were done really well, and so that was really cool to me.
How did you find this more epic when they're just hanging out on one planet the entire time, and the first one they're they're running all over the place?
I thought there was more drive, and I
more character driven.
I cared more. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I liked the first one a lot. It's just this one did a little more for me. And when the action finally went down, it was a little more serious. I liked that there was no dance-off pro in this one.
Yeah, that was kind of okay. The first one is just magic to me. It's got the chops of being first, and now everybody's imitating. Suicide Squad, Thor Ragnarok, in the marketing at least, is imitating it. And I still think it captured that space disco movie. I don't know.
Rock.
Like, it was such a breath of fresh air. But this is a real breath of fresh air, too, I think. This is a very, very different movie.
I think one thing most people can agree on is that Marvel movies tend to have very weak villains.
I thought he was a really weak villain, too.
I liked him a lot. I thought his character made sense, and I thought he was very unlikable, while also being just like charismatic as fuck.
They all have charisma. Mads Mikkelsen had charisma. You know, Jeff Bridges has charisma.
The Thor 2 villain did not have charisma.
The Thor 2 villain didn't have lines because the real Thor 2 villain was Tom Hiddleston, and he had charisma. Like, the problem is not that they don't get charismatic actors. The problem is they're really thinly written.
Yeah.
And Ego was very thinly written. He shows up. He's like, I'm your dad. They have a catch. And then he's like, also, I'm Space Hitler. Help me destroy the galaxy.
I thought that was a neat twist.
I didn't at all.
Because
it was dumb.
Maybe not charismatic's the right word, but memorable. I feel like this character's memorable. And while,
Is he memorable beyond the fact that it's Kurt Russell?
I mean, that's not really fair, I feel like. I mean, yeah, sure, a different actor might not have done it as well. But I feel like it's a major part is the performance.
Some actors have mystique that rises above their performance. Like, Kurt Russell doesn't necessarily have to be on his A game, and he's still Kurt fucking Russell. Escape from L.A. is still a memorable movie because it's got Kurt Russell in it.
Surfing.
To go to the absolute worst example. I don't really get all the praise for this villain because he's got the same problems that the other Marvel villains have. He definitely had more lines than Lee Pace in the first one, but I thought he was more developed as, like...
Oh, is that the Kree guy?
Yeah, as... I'm saying I thought he was more developed. I can't remember his fucking name. You look at the Kree guy, and you say, well, he lost his entire race, and he's very, very upset, and he wants to get the MacGuffin. You look at Ego. What does he want to do?
He wants to conquer the. He wants to spread the master race.
He doesn't even have a master race. He just wants to kill people. It's stupid. It doesn't. There's nothing behind it. He's just like, mass murder is my purpose. And it's much more charismatic than that because it's Kurt Russell. He's just like, mass murder is my purpose in life. And I'm like, okay.
Cigarettes and coffee.
Do you think the soundtrack was better this time?
I do.
Like, they open up with the Beatles.
No, they don't. They open up with Brandy.
They have a prologue with Brandy, and then they actually open up
Yeah.
with the Beatles.
That's not the Beatles. That's Electric Light Orchestra.
Mr. Blue Sky is the Beatles.
No, it's not.
What? 6 songs people apparently think are by the wrong artist. It opens up with what sounds like the Beatles.
Just based off the first 2 opening songs alone, I think that might be better than. I mean, other than those 2 songs, I'll give you. I don't really remember the rest of the music in the movie. Well, Cat Stevens' Father and Son. That's like the 3 songs I remember.
That was the gut punch. There was something really subtle that they were doing with the music, which they were playing more with whether or not it was diegetic. Like, there are a couple of times that Rocket made a big deal out of having music playing while they did murder, and once Peter Quill realizes the power was inside him all along, they have this big, and then Fleetwood Mac starts playing, and it's very clearly non-diegetic, and it's the first time in the movie that we have music that is not clearly coming from a source on screen.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really clever thing that they did. But I'll tell you what this movie did that I really, really liked. They made it about family, but in a much stronger way. You got Peter Quill, who's like the kind of tubby, goofy father figure. Well, not in this movie. Mother figure who's way out of his league, and he's trying to get laid the whole time. And then the other 3 are like their kids. Like, you've got Baby Groot, who's literally a baby, and then Drax is like the goofball middle school child, and then Rocket is the older child who's always challenging the male figure.
I thought they went a little overboard on Baby Groot, which I was worried about.
You can't possibly go overboard on Baby Groot. Baby Groot is the draw.
I hate cute things, so.
Is that why we don't get along? They went to lengths to develop Yondu and Nebula much more, to the point that they like took over as the more important characters. I didn't even think they were going to be in this at first, because their stories were done.
I don't know if they're going to change this in the movie, but Nebula has a very, very important part in Infinity Gauntlet, so they kind of had to develop her character more.
Okay.
Yondu, I have no explanation for. I guess they just wanted a new father figure for Peter Quill.
What they do with it is correct and thoughtful. They have Peter Quill discovering his biological father, and they have Yondu, who essentially raised him.
Yeah. They
play on that dynamic a lot more, and it fits in with the family themes that they have, and so does Nebula with Gamora and their sister rivalry.
I thought Yondu and Rocket's dynamic was a little ham-fisted.
It wasn't quite as gracefully done as the rest of the movie. Really, that's what I would say, is that this movie is just really gracefully done. They're doing weird things, and they do them really well.
This movie was almost kind of like Suicide Squad done correctly. Like it's like a middle. This movie was like a middle finger to DC.
Every Marvel movie is a middle finger to DC in some way now. Aren't Thor Ragnarok and Justice League coming out within a couple of weeks of each other? This had obviously finished production by the time Suicide Squad came out, but maybe that's what they'll do with Volume 3. Like, they'll take Suicide Squad's soundtrack and just use it so much better. The planet was fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a pretty movie.
Like, I'm complaining that there weren't enough worlds, but the one world that they were on, you would not want to leave.
Probably want to leave it.
Once you found out that it was ruled by Space Hitler, yes, you'd want to leave it.
Last call, Knob. How many beers did you give James Jimmy Gunn for this movie?
5 beers. This is a wonderfully directed movie. It's a wonderfully written movie. It's a wonderfully conceived movie. He's got ownership over it in a way that no other Marvel director does. This is the second breath of fresh air he's breathed into the MCU, which, like, we're complaining about DC, but the MCU is so stale at this point. I mean, Doctor Strange, I almost slept through, despite having some of the best scenes of the year, because it was so formulaic. And these Guardians of the Galaxy movies are just the opposite of that.
Yeah, I'd give it 5 beers. Just awesome action, awesome lore, if you're into that.
First one was still better than
It's debatable.
very easily debatable.
How many beers would you want to see? Watch this, see. How many beers would you?
Jesus Christ, dude!
How many beers would you? How many beers would? Fuck!
I feel like this is a good movie to watch drunk. It's a good movie to watch sober.
It's a good movie to watch.
It just goes down real easy.
You know what else goes down really easy?
Shut up! No, I'm cutting
A Long
whatever
Island.
you have.
What are you drinking?
Austin East Ciders.
Austin East Ciders goes down real easy. Anyway, Paul Wedding, Leopold Knopp, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Riprocks.
Cheers.